Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to this session. Now, this is the first part to a three-part series where I'll be analyzing the previous year questions, the patterns, the trends. What is, you can say, a high yielding area for GS paper 1. So, today we'll be discussing modern history, post independence. In the next session, which is for 16th, we'll be discussing art and culture. And then on 20th, which is next Saturday, we'll be discussing world history. The idea is very simple. In the next 1 hour, 1.5 hours, I will go through three basic understanding. First, I'll show you the syllabus. Then I will identify the number of questions which have come from this area. Then I will identify certain areas which are generally very, very important. And then I'll also tell you how to approach the answers or how to write an answer for modern India and post independence. And we can do a survey of all the questions which have come till today. And I'll give you a basic idea what is expected. Meaning sometimes reading the question is more important and understanding the question is more important than just answering it in that segment. So, good evening to all of you. I hope that you all are in a way, either way, if you are a beginner or you are a person who's going to write the examination, this session is going to help you in contextualizing a lot of things. Because even as a beginner, you need to know the previous year paper analysis, what to study, what not to study, and what is the expectation in that. Right. So, good evening. Let's start our understanding and analysis for today. First things first is, where does modern history and post independence basically fit in into the whole story? When we talk about the overall story, we have GS paper 1, history, geography, society, and from within that, because history itself is not one subject, we have mention of modern Indian history from about middle of 18th century until the present, significant personalities, events and issues. At the same point of time, we have the freedom struggle, which is directly quoted, and post independence consolidation and reorganization within the country. Now, if we talk about the analysis part, looking at the question paper, looking at the syllabus itself, it does not seem likely or unlikely, or it is not very clear what UPSC is going to concentrate on. That can only be understood through previous year paper analysis. That is the whole purpose of this lecture, to identify areas which can help you in the larger scheme of. Now, if you are preparing for 2026 mains, we don't know as of right now, the result has not come through. A lot of students are on the borderline, but I hope that you have been joining me for the Conquer mains sessions, in which we have already gone through the modern India section in the past 3 days. We are doing live answer writing. We are doing everything in the most comprehensive manner possible. And if you haven't, or if you want to, we also have a special offer of 4,999, and you can buy any of these sections in itself if you want to. You just have to use the code IS English. That is the most important thing here to get this price point. The simple point is, the mains program is live right now. Polity and modern India has already happened. If you are delaying your decision, if you're delaying everything because you believe that the result is going to decide, I would say start the preparation. The worst that can happen is you will not clear. Rather start your preparation, because if you have your name there, you should not be wasting time right now. Now, if you want the PPT, do scan this QR code to get the PPT. I will upload it to this Telegram channel. Now let's talk about what we have to cover. We have now established, two things. Modern India, there is two ways in which it is mentioned in the syllabus. First, 18th century, keyword, events, personalities, and issues. On the other hand, when we talk about the other, it says Indian national movement directly. Now we have to see if this is actually true according to the pattern also. Because sometimes UPSC says something, sometimes UPSC does something else, as we know in 2026. So the first is, how many questions can you expect out of modern India? We are now doing trend analysis part. Now, when we talk about modern India number of questions, there has been a certain trend where the more post India or post independence questions come and world history questions come, modern India takes a hit. So there is a pattern where you can expect at least 3 to 4 questions, but it has gone as low as one also. So from the point of 2013, 10 year, you can say 2013, 2025, major period of analysis, 3, 4, 2, 4, 2 peaks, 2020, 2017, 2019, then 2021, again a peak of 3, then 2, and then 1. Now, this should not discourage you to do or not do modern India. The simple point is this will only go up from here. What we understand, based on the larger trend, there have been multiple spikes in this story. The last time they asked one question, there's a spike to 4 questions. So for a student of 2027, 28, you are in that zone where there is a very good chance that you will get more than 2 questions. Over and above that, because world history questions and post India questions have made a comeback, that is why this hit is there. So I may not be in that zone to really think that do I need to do modern India or not. But what I'm trying to tell you is, based on trends, there has always been a uptick whenever there has been a certain slump. So there's a slump which is going on. There will always be an uptick. UPSC has a habit to overcorrect. This is a standard thing which UPSC does. It will overcorrect for sure. And that overcorrection could be 4 questions in 2026. Now, when we talk about post independence, here you can expect 0 to 1 question maximum. Because see, 2013 there was a question, there were 7 questions. It was the highest we ever got. Thereafter, for 2014, it was not there only. No 14, 15 one question, 16 one question, nothing in 17, then 2018 one question, then 19, 20 no questions, 21 there was a question, then 22 there was a question, then 23, 24 no question. So there's a very good chance that 26, 27 there may not be a question, but maximum one question they can ask. They're trying to balance it out because total quota of questions for history is 5 to 6. They have to balance art and culture, modern and post independence. But I hope that you understand one thing for sure. I hope that you understand this, that post independence is second in priority, because any day there are more questions of modern India than of post independence, and there is more certainty to modern India than to post independence. This is the first point to be noted. So, based on these two graphs, what is our understanding? Our understanding is there is a chance for uptick in modern India. At the same point of time, there is more certainty, obviously, of modern India coming than post independence. Post independence is your second priority. This is the only mains area also. Why? Because this here we have prelims plus mains. So the ROI into modern India as it is higher. So I hope that this point is completely clear to you, that modern India and post independence, modern India is first priority. Are we clear about this point, everybody? Because this is a very well established fact, very well known fact, but you may be oblivious of it. Okay. Now that we have understood how many questions are coming, now that we have understood how many questions are coming, we need to understand in modern India what are the areas where there is repetition, what are the areas where which are high yielding, and what are the areas as a beginner where you need to concentrate, and as a person who's writing mains 2026 where to actually work on and revise, and as a repeater what is your weak point in this whole list, because you have to make sure that when you get a chance to write the mains examination, that should be your last attempt. This is a pact which you should have with yourself. The year I'm going to get the chance to write mains, that will be my last chance. Why? Because once you have done the hard work of reaching till from prelims to mains, then you have to clear this exam. Now, when you analyze the number of questions and when you analyze the trends per se, we are able to identify at least 5 to 6 areas where the, you can say, return on investment is very very high. For example, Gandhi and Gandhian thought, which is Gandhi Bose, Gandhi Ambedkar, Gandhi Tagore, Gandhi's constructive program, Gandhian phase, Gandhi in present times, Gandhian phase and voices. 7 questions have come between 2013 to 2025. So Gandhi and Gandhian movements such as CDM, non-cooperation movement, the what we call as Quit India movement, Rowlatt Satyagrah, 1915 to 1942 is a very important phase generally. Further, national movement, because it is directly mentioned. So see, the syllabus said we will ask questions out of personality. So the personality which they have actually chosen as of right now till now is Gandhi. Then because Indian national movement is directly quoted in the syllabus itself, therein, Quit India, moderates, objectives of the independent movement or independence movement, transfer of power, Royal Naval Mutiny, RIN Mutiny, international influence, women, foreigners in the freedom movement. 9 questions, which means going by this pattern, the points which are Gandhian, if you add the phase between 1942 to 1947, and here if you add 1885 to 1915, this area is the highest yielding according to the number of questions which have come generally in the examination. There is no doubt about this, that this is very, very important. Further, British expansion, colonial state, there's an uptick here. Recently, a lot of questions have come out of how did the East India Company win? Well, how is 1857? 1857, 2 questions back to back. We have seen along with fragmented polity. This is where this is a new trend area. This is a new trend area. Then economic policy, again, good ROI, 3 questions, easy because they're all based on what we do for prelims. Then there is an obsession with a topic called social reform movement, socio-religious reform movement. People tend to think that if they don't do this, they will die. But between 2013 and 2025, the number of questions in mains is only two. Only two. That too, last year, there was a question on the Indian Renaissance, Jyotiba Phule. That is basically depressed classes more. That is where we can see that other areas such as social history are not that important. The more important area is these two. If I was preparing for the examination today, I would make sure that these two areas, three areas are sorted. Now, I can further analyze this on how they have asked questions or what is the topic which they've asked in the examination. In that respect, for example, from the national movement and freedom struggle sector, initially there was a certain, you can say, social outlook. From there, it became about naval mutiny to the concept of world history interacting with modern India. From there, what we see is now they are going specific to certain movements. So, from voices, transfer of power, new objectives, to moderates and freedom struggle. Moderates have come twice. The idea is very simple. UPSC is going into a micro zone. A micro zone. They're going into the micros of this area. If you look at the questions of Gandhi, it is more about juxtaposition. For example, Gandhi Ambedkar, Gandhi Bose, Gandhi Tagore, and then Gandhian phase programs. If we talk about British expansion, Dalhousie, fragmented polity, 1857, Lord Cornwallis, and then why? This is the last question which we've seen as a major question out of this area. Why did East India Company win with numerically less army? When we talk about here, larger economic policy, deindustrialization, colonial famines. Two questions. That's it. Jyotiba Phule can be pushed into art and culture also in a way, but if I had to put him, I'll put him here. So let's try to understand what have we understood and what have we learned. When we talk about modern India, when we talk about modern India, there are three conclusions which we can come up with, right? The first conclusion is there in the future, there is a chance for an increase in the number of questions because it has diminished over a period of time. UPSC will overcorrect for sure. Second, the number of questions can be from 2 to 4 based on the year, and basically 1 10 marker or 2 15 markers. Mostly this is the whole concept. So at least 30 to 45 marks are in your hand and in modern India's hand, which is a very big number. Further, modern India is both for prelims and mains. Therefore, there has to be most, you can say, the most important area and the effort which has to go into modern India should be the maximum. Over and above that, modern India, there are certain areas which are important. This is why we are here. This is how you do trend analysis also. If you have ever tried to do it for any other subject or you're doing it right now, this is how you do trend analysis. Understand the overall pattern. And now, what are the important areas which we have to concentrate? Then I will tell you what is expected from a modern India answer, and then we'll look at some previous year questions also, so that it is as comprehensive as possible in the larger scheme of. Now, when we talk about areas which are important, Gandhi as a personality is important. Therefore, Gandhian phase in the national movement cannot be ignored. There is no doubt about that. You have to concentrate here. Second is there is economic history, advent, along with that, what is called as new areas which UPSC is exploring, which is before 1857, economic history, advent, new areas, and expansion, larger strategy. Again, we don't know how long this pattern will be there, but it is there. Thereafter, personalities associated with this movement are directly quoted in the syllabus, so therefore they are important. Maybe vis-a-vis Gandhi is even more important. So whenever you do a personality analysis, you have to do it vis-a-vis Gandhi. Then your second priority areas, other than the national movement, which obviously has to be the most important, is socio-religious reform, and if we take into consideration everything else, we have to concentrate on the larger contribution of social classes. Now, as a beginner, what you have to understand, or as a person who's preparing for UPSC, you have to understand that the nature of questions is very different, very different. Meaning, when you prepare for prelims, you have a different type of orientation. When you prepare for mains, you have a different type of orientation. I want to showcase this to you through the questions because you should be able to understand how to approach the questions and how to look at the larger trend. But before I do that, anybody has any question issue till this point? We have only established three things: areas which have a lot of good ROI. We have also established at this point of time the number of questions which is expected out of modern India, and based on that, what conclusion we can come up with. Anybody who is here who wants to discuss this point, or if we are totally clear, we can move on to the way you have to write a modern India answer, and thereafter also how you have to approach this area in the larger scheme of things. All clear? Very good. Perfect. Now, modern India and post independence. How to write an answer or what is expected. See, every subject has a different type of approach. And therefore, you have to understand how to approach each one of them in the best way possible. First is structure. Structure mostly does not change, which is there has to be an introduction, there has to be a body, there has to be a conclusion. No doubts whatsoever. Thereafter, obviously, don't write this in the examination. The format which I expect from you or would work for you in the examination. This is in para format, this is in point format, this is in para format. That ways it looks better also in the examination because aesthetics matter. And also at the same point of time, you will save a lot of words. You can interlink the points, but you may not need to actually write essays. It is easier to underline also. It is better this way, at least in history. Then the next question is word count, because that is very, very important. Have to be specific, have to adhere to 150 or 250 words. Now, in that case, what is expected from you is that here, 20 to 30 words, 100 words, 20 to 30 words, 150 if it is 250 word question. This is basically what is needed. If you are privileging any one of them, then you are not writing the right answer. Because either the introduction is too big, points are very slow. Either the conclusion is too big, makes no sense. You should know in your own handwriting how much 20 to 30 words looks like. Very important point you have to understand. How much did it look like? Further, now comes the most important discussion here, which is what to write in this. See, in most cases, and you obviously cannot make thousands of introductions which you will learn. In introduction, it is historical context. I will show you the structure of at least 5-6 questions on how to approach them and how it works. Similarly, here you have to be specific in answering the question. In answering the question. And here you can have impact or significance. This is not a thumb rule. This is not given. This is not something which you always have to do, but this is expected from. If you are in a soup, if you are in a pickle, if you're not able to understand the question, this should be your basic approach. Every question of history has some historical context. Why, how, what is the context, preceding maybe developments. Be specific in writing what the question is asking. And at the same point of time, either talk about the implications, either talk about the significance, either talk about the impact in the larger scheme of things. At what happened in the larger scheme. So do remember this point very clearly, that structure cannot change. Writing small subheadings is fine. Don't use 5 color pens, use 1 color pen, underline properly, and handwriting has to be consistent throughout this period. Now, million dollar question here is, do I need to add a map or diagram or flowchart? To that, to that the answer is yes, if you have time, but it is supplementary. Supplementary means that if I'm making a flowchart in the end, a mind map in the end, that is good for consolidation. But your main answer cannot be a mind map itself. Similarly, if you're making a map here, good, but it should look like a map of India. If you are making any form of, you can say, diagrams, please don't put all the information in the diagram itself. The diagram can be a walkthrough of the content which is there. It cannot be the content itself. Post independence, same point. If and see, for art and culture, the strategy will change a little bit. For world history, again, the strategy will change. We will have the conversation when we are doing it. As of right now, what I want you to understand is only one thing, which is that if you are clueless about answer writing, this is the format to follow. But then there is a standard question which will come to your mind is, sir, what to concentrate now, or what to concentrate on? See, there are two things which you have to understand. First, you have to understand that the content has to be perfect. So your first priority is content. Your first priority is content. I have the chat here. I'm just looking at. Okay. Then, then your second priority is speed plus handwriting. And your third priority is aesthetics. As a beginner right now, if your content is bad, speed is good, aesthetics is good, it makes no sense whatsoever. You take 45 minutes right now, but first get content clarity. Once you have content clarity, speed and handwriting, two things is very important. Here it needs to be consistent, and here it is very important that it is that speed should not come at the cost of handwriting, and 8 to 9 minutes is the target time which you have to go. Obviously, there's a long journey from 45 minutes to 8 to 9 minutes, and the only solution is practice. It is practice, practice, and practice. There is no silver bullet here. No silver bullet, no potion which I can give you, which you will drink and you will start to write answers within 8 to 9 minutes. There are, as I said, three things which have to be clear in the examination: your handwriting, your content, and your speed. All three have to be consistent in the examination. And these are the three boxes which you have to tick in the exam. There's a long way from now, but the point is that at least these three things you have to concentrate on. Now that we understand the trend and we understand the structure, can we now discuss how to approach certain questions? Can we discuss first for modern India, then understand the trend for post independence and do post independence questions? Yes, sir. Okay. Now, let's start with one of the latest questions, which is, what were the events that led to the Quit India movement? Point out its result. 150 words, 2024, 10 marks. Right? Now, when we talk about this question, what is the structure which we have to follow? Intro, body, conclusion. What were the events that led to Quit India movement? Point out its results. There are two parts to this question: events that led up to Quit India, second, results. In the introduction, you obviously have to talk about how, because of the Second World War, there was a different type of dynamism in the Indian subcontinent, and there was a certain question which the INC had asked from the government of India, which is British. Basically, now you can't talk about any of the events which lead up to Quit India. So, therefore, body, there will be two parts. First part, you have to discuss events which lead up to Quit India. For example, we'll talk about August offer, you will talk about Cripps mission, we'll talk about individual satyagraha, we will talk about Second World War, we'll talk about Japanese onslaught. All of these things matter. Thereafter, when you go into the second part, there you have to talk about the results. Results means that what was the outcome of Quit India? Quit India, in a way, was a movement which became above and beyond Gandhian politics, popular nationalism. And then you talk about how it in turn led to parallel governments. This, and you can talk about any result, but within the given space. Conclusion obviously will be the significance of this event, which is inaugurating the era of this new phase, which is popular nationalism. Now, this is a format for a question where there is an event based question. If you look at the format of a question where you have two personalities, how do you do it? What were the differences between Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore in their approach to education and nationalism? Now, in this question, the best format is going to be that you have a table. A table where you have Gandhi and Tagore, and you divide the table into first education and then to nationalism. And then talk about the points vis-a-vis each other. Vis-a-vis each other. And the idea is very simple. Format has to evolve with the different aspects of the question. Meaning, if you are trying to write this into a table, it makes no sense whatsoever. However, if you are writing with a comparative approach, table is important. Now, these are two different contrasting type of questions. Event based and the idea of having two personalities in question. Then, if I want to take a question where the new type of questions, this type where they're asking not out of national movement, but they're asking technical questions. These are called technical questions. Technical question means that if you don't understand the question itself, should there only be a table? Obviously, there has to be an introduction and conclusion. Obviously, introduction and conclusion has to be there. Table is part and parcel. This keeps on changing. Body keeps on changing. Intro conclusion has to be there. That in the context of the Indian national movement, Gandhi and Tagore were extremely important personalities. These are the differences between them. Conclusion. Without both these personalities, the Indian national movement would have been incomplete per se. So you have to write something in introduction conclusion for sure. Introduction conclusion theory does not change. Now, let's go to technical. I hope you're understanding the train of thought here. I'm trying to show you different types of questions. These are called technical questions. You can't answer them if you don't know the processes behind it. For example, why did the armies of the British East India Company, mostly comprising of Indian soldiers, win consistently against the more numerous and better equipped Indian rulers? Though this question has a problem because this part is not true, but when UPSC says something, you have to accept it. And for example, the second question, why was there a sudden spurt in famines in the colonial period? Since mid 18th century, give reasons. Now, if you look at the way you approach both of these questions, you can't really go into it by historical context. You have to play with the words. So, in the first question, it is basically asking how did the British win with having just a very numerically low army? And the answer to that question is they were able to win because of multiple factors. So, in the introduction, you have to assert that in a way, yes, that the British East India Company fought multiple battles in the Indian separation, and you can use the words out of the question itself. That British East India Company was fighting multiple battles, fought multiple battles, and they were able to win consistently. They were able to win consistently, and the reasons for that is, now list them. When you list them, then you basically are enumerating important factors. For example, infighting, inroads which were given to them, treachery, subsidiary alliance, doctrine of lapse, wait and watch strategy. Write about that in one word, then expand on it. Conclusion obviously is going to be that all of these factors allowed the British to expand without having a numerically bigger army. But the second question which you see here is a very different type of question, because it is asking about famines and why was there a sudden spurt. So again, in the introduction, you have to talk about that there are multiple famines which happened. Now you're giving historical context. There were multiple famines which happened within the East India Company and the Crown. The reasons for that was now interconnected understanding. Land revenue settlements led to commercialization, led to deindustrialization. The idea is very simple. Here it is a process-driven understanding. So there are technical questions also. There are questions which are straightforward also like this, where you just have to enumerate. Understanding the question is very, very, very important. Now, if you look at the questions from a larger perspective, you will also realize that UPSC has asked questions which are repeating themselves. For example, see, Gandhian phase, many voices question is here, right? This came in 2019. Now there's one more question which is going to be, since the decade of 20th century, ideological base was expanded. These are two same questions with different approaches. Similarly, if you look at the question on moderates, both type of questions have come, most positive and negative. Positive question saying that they were able to nurture nationalism, and at the same point of time, they failed to help. This is a positive question. A negative question is also. But if you see these questions, you will realize that, see, this is the negative question, 2017. You will realize one thing, that UPSC is not asking factual, it is asking conceptual. This is a very important point you have to understand. Conceptual questions are coming. Facts may be part of the answer. But if you don't understand the process, if you don't understand the larger concepts, then as it is, you will not be able to answer the questions in the larger scheme of things. You will not be able to. So concept driven understanding is very important. Furthermore, for modern India, one size fits all is not going to work, because the question will decide which approach you will take. So for modern India, the question pattern is very, very diverse. And at the same point of time, the need of the questions is very, very different to understand and to go with. So do we understand what is the pattern of questions? What is the need of the questions? What is expected from you? And what is the larger trend analysis? Because then I will move to post-independent. Are we clear about this, modern India? Yes or no? Yes? Okay. Now, when we talk about post-independence, if you are going to prepare one topic, you will get maximum number of marks if UPSC is going to ask this type of question, which is princely state consolidation, consolidation of India, linguistic and reorganization of states, meaning linguistic issues, reorganization, and princely state integration. These are the three areas. If covered, you are set, because the number of questions out of them is the maximum if there have been any, if in that given year, in that regard. And therefore we talk about certain questions which may be out of the box, some random thing is asked, but in most cases these are the three areas which you have to concentrate. And if you look at the questions also, the questions are about the processes. If you look at the questions, you will see processes. Trace India's consolidation process during early phase of independence in polity, economy, education, international relations. Basically, NAM, the education policy followed after independence, economy, how we the land reforms, everything else, and polity, how we wrote the constitution and the evolution of constitution per se, and what is called Congress domination. Similarly, if you look at the reorganization questions, it's like this. Political administrative reorganization has been ongoing process. They've now brought modern India plus post independence. Why am I telling you a very simple point? It is worth doing these three topics because at least you will be able to do a question if there is a question that year. So, what is the broader conclusion here? Structure does not change, answer writing strategy does not. The broader conclusion is very simple. Modern India has to be your first priority, post independence your second priority. Second, number of questions are here more than obvious. This. And three topics are very important here. Princely state, reorganization, consolidation. And here, national movement, Gandhi and personalities, and Gandhi vis-a-vis certain personality is high yielding. Introduction, body, conclusion, and everything has to be in the right understanding. If we are clear about this and if you have any questions, I'll take them up. If not, I hope that this session helped you in contextualizing things. And the next two sessions also in this efficient manner of 45 minutes, 1 hour, I'll try to give you as much perspective as possible. Are we clear about this? Are we in the right zone to now write answers for GS paper 1? And my job is to make sure that when your name comes in the result, you should not be looking for the places to revise on. You should know where to revise. If you're part of Conquer Mains, even better. We have done that in class itself. Right? Okay. Done. Perfect. So thank you so much. I will see you again on Tuesday, and we will be covering art and culture. Little bit different, little bit more technical, little bit more, you can say, driven not just by processes but also by understanding of symbolism. All of this we will do on Tuesday. Thank you. Take care.